Let me accept this. Okay. Thank you everyone for being here. My name is Gladys Andino. I am one of the founders and chair of the Virginia Women in HPC. What I have to tell about our group, let me move these slides, is that we founded this program right in the midst of the pandemic in April 2021. So far, we have 7 institutions that are participating in the program, including UVA, Virginia Tech, George Mason, VCU, William and Mary, the University of Richmond, and also BIMS. Today, we have a total of 266 members, a part of our mailing list. And really, what our mission is that we are committing to increasing diversity, equity, and inclusion, and by promoting and encouraging the participation and equal representation of women in HPC and any other related technology fields. Our vision for the program is to hold regular meetings, doing it in this setting, a remote setting. We plan for this year to be able to host one event that can be in person and that we can broadcast. Through the presentations, what we look to have is to have invited speakers that can come and talk, having technical conversations, research conversations, anything that you are doing with the HPC to accomplish your research questions is something that we want to highlight through this. We also want to focus the program in discussion of professional development and by leveraging actually the mentors and the people that we have within our partner institutions. We want also to be able to provide a statewide community with network and opportunities for everyone. We know that this field of HPC is not heavily dominated by women and is a challenging field to be part of. And we want to create an environment that is welcoming and for everyone. Also, we are looking to offer mentorship opportunities to expose our female students, especially, and create role models for them in this field of HPC. We're searching to bridge funding for students that can attend HPC related conferences, and we want to create and communicate internship opportunities. A little bit more about who we are. So today we are a total of 13 members. This is what I mean, our committee members, and we have, you can see here all the institutions that are represented. We have also Alana from Access. She was before part of VTech, but now she has a new role and she's the person representing Access. So if you see any of the faces here that are familiar to you or are directly associated with your institution, please feel free to reach out. And if you want to be more involved, you can email any of us or you can get access to our mailing list too. And that's basically what I have for now. And with that, Carson, I'm going to give you the room so that you can introduce our speakers and we can begin our panel session today.
Thank you, Gladys. Would you mind moving to that slide that has the overview?
The previous?
Just with the list of our speakers. Yeah, great. Thank you. So if you just joined, please sign into the Google Doc. The link is posted in the chat. And for today's panel discussion, it is our pleasure to welcome and introduce as 2 speakers, Shannon Phillips. She's the Director of IT Service Operations for University Libraries at Virginia Tech, and Virginia Evans, who just last month retired from her post as Vice President and Chief Information Officer at the University of Virginia. Shannon and Virginia will each spend a few minutes today to share a personal perspective of their careers, successes, and challenges. And we will follow that up with an interactive Q&A for open discussion with all of you in the audience. So please keep your virtual pencils sharpened and add your questions to the chat, and I will transfer those over to the Google Doc as well. So we'll start with Shannon, and so let me provide a little bit more detail about her. Shannon, as I mentioned, is the Director of IT Service Operations for University Libraries at Virginia Tech. In her current position, she is responsible for leading the IT professionals who provide support desk services, desktop support, system support technology training, and IT policy compliance across all university libraries locations. Shannon is an IT professional with more than 20 years of experience, working for several public universities across the Commonwealth, and past positions include Director of Technology Support Services, Director of Instructional Technologies, Associate Director for Academic Computing, and a few others. Shannon holds a BA in music as well as a Master's of Arts in Education from Virginia Tech, and her graduate studies were focused on instructional design and instructional technology. So without further ado, Shannon, you have the mic.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So as you all know, my undergraduate studies, my graduate studies, they were not in CS, they were not in IT related fields. So I thought I'd just go ahead and start by saying, you know, I am a director of IT operations. I have been serving in that role or doing pieces of that role for the last couple of positions that I've been in. And when I began, at least my educational journey, that was absolutely not where I saw anything going at all. I did not know that I was going to have a career in IT. So I thought I'd tackle that one first. How on earth did I get here? I started my undergrad in music in 1993. So at that point, if I take you back in time a little bit, you didn't get an email address. In fact, most of my peers had not sent or received an email before. You weren't required to have email. You weren't required to have a computer. Quite a few of us didn't have computer. I came with a Brother word processor. I came with a fancy typewriter that plugged into the wall. And when I started my undergraduate, I joined a department that had heavily incorporated computers and technology into their curriculum. And I was there to be a music educator, and I very quickly became completely fascinated with the way this technology was being incorporated into that academic setting. And so I benefited from these pieces of technology that they put in. And then I became fascinated with how that was being incorporated. And then I wanted to get into it and build the websites and understand more about the technology behind the computer training and the self-paced modules. And the further I got into this, the more it became apparent that I wasn't going to be a music educator. And I thought, well, what I'm really interested in is this developing instructional technology field. And one of the faculty noticed this and recommended that I move into the master's degree in instructional systems design and concentrate on instructional technology. So I came out of my graduate studies as an instructional designer for a company that did a lot of government contracting. And I spent about a year there when someone who'd worked with me during my graduate studies said, you know, you did all of these things really well, and I've got this multimedia lab that I'm going to take out of a small space, I'm going to expand it, and I need a really solid manager with a lot of curiosity about whatever technology comes down the pike, who's willing to just kind of open up anything and figure out how it works and figure out how we can make it available to other people. And that's what I really enjoyed doing. So I applied and I took the position as a manager of a multimedia lab. And again, if you'd gone 5 years back, it would have seemed odd to be there. But it really did match up with all of the things that I wanted to do. And so I said, okay, I'm just going to do this. And I dove in. About 8 years later, I'd been working on where I would go next with my career. And there was another woman in the department, I think one, who had actually recommended me for a women's mentoring and leadership program. It had never occurred to me to attend and participate in one of these. And I did. And I started really thinking about my career as being a career in IT, not just about, oh, I'd wandered in here and I'd wound up in this position or that position. And as I thought about it, I realized that I wanted to go into, I was in a unit that was reporting to a department that was reporting to another group place that went into the division of IT. And I wanted to move up in the division of IT. So I started looking for opportunities and found one that was an associate director of academic computing for a university. So it took a lot of skills I had here. And I went for it and applied. And what I found at this stage in my career, because I had a lot of doubt about whether or not I was a one-for-one match with this description, you know, am I the perfect candidate? And I realized that there are other people being paid to make that determination, and that I'm going to apply, and they can decide, you know, I'm going to put my best foot forward, and I'm just going to apply. And so from then on out, when I would see an opportunity, that's what I would do. I would apply, and then I would see where it took me. I have not been interviewed for every position I applied for. But I've been, you know, I have been contacted over quite a few of them, and I would have not had any of those opportunities if I didn't. So I applied, I moved into that position, moved my family across the state, spent 8 years there. During that time, one of the biggest challenges I probably faced at that time was dealing with kind of a pay disparity among associate directors and directors. I had been promoted at one point. I was the only full director, and I didn't know how to approach the situation, and it took me a little while. But eventually, working with and being very open with my CIO and one of the vice presidents that he reported to, we came to that got resolved. And it took years, but it did. And I learned at that point that I need to negotiate going in. So this is just my perspective on taking a new job. And when I took the next opportunity, I made sure to incorporate more of a salary negotiation into the position that I was taking. From there, I moved back across the state again, because I had been directing an instructional technology unit, and I really wanted to do more and expand more. I had done temporary management of elements of the service desk, of elements of the desktop team, and I really wanted to do more of that. So I found a position that was a great opportunity, and I really wanted to move into that area, and I put my application in, and it worked out, and I moved across, and I became more of a technical services director. So academic computing reported to me, but so did the help desk, and so did voice and telephone services. Oddly, the switchboard for the university as well was located in that group, and a couple of different elements, I think class lab computing. And, you know, from there, I gained a lot of experience in all of these different areas that ultimately led me to university libraries, where I'm now not in central IT. And I was a little nervous about that application. Years ago, when I began my career, the library didn't have the kind of technology presence that it did, and they didn't have as many external non-librarian technologists involved, or IT professionals. So I've joined this group now. I thoroughly enjoy being at university libraries, and which was odd. I spent 20 years in central IT. So again, I was very used to that culture, and I had to make a big change. It's a different culture over in the libraries world. There's some common goals. We have common goals. We all want to get the same thing done. But I'm getting used to the rhythms and the methods that we have in a distributed IT department. So that's where I am now. I would say the biggest challenges really have been about, as I grow in my career, knowing my own worth salary-wise, and not being shy about bringing that up as a legitimate topic when I'm in hiring. Turning all of this around, now the greatest challenge is really about taking a moment to acknowledge the surviving and maybe thriving in an environment that I would really like to evolve into something else, so that maybe 20 years from now, when women are telling these stories, they're not talking about the survival years. They're talking about joining their teams and getting to know their teams, and not maybe those years where you felt like you always had to be right, because if you were wrong once, it was going to be super critical. Or, and what do I need to do to be a part of that evolution in the workplace, to be a part of changing that atmosphere? So those are some of the things that are on my mind most of the time. So when I'm in a hiring committee, talking someone through, the bias we have maybe for the person who talked a single solid stream of acronyms instead of maybe answering the question. You know, because we're comfortable, and I find non-technical people on search committees are more comfortable sometimes with what they think is what should be the answer than maybe the answer to the question. So that's where I am right now, and I think I'll just leave it there. That's all right.
Great, thank you, Shannon. We are maybe we have time for one question here, and as I mentioned, we do have like a whole block for a Q&A at the end. But if there's anyone in the audience have a specific question for Shannon right here. I'm just going to ask one question, Shannon, and that is, you mentioned the sort of the disparity in pay when you started. Do you feel like at your institution now that there's been progress to make sure that everyone sort of sets out based on qualifications and it's equitable?
Yes, I feel like that's been addressed where I am right now. We're very distributed institution, so I can't speak across the entire institution, but I do feel that there are adequate discussions about the person's experience and the person's skill set that maybe aren't based on assumptions about the person because of who they are or how they present themselves. Great,
thank you. So everyone, please feel free to post new questions, and we will come back to this for the general Q&A at the end. Now I would like to introduce Virginia, our second speaker, in a little bit more detail. As I mentioned, Virginia recently retired from her post as the Vice President and Chief Information Officer at the University of Virginia, where she was responsible for planning and delivering central IT infrastructure, applications, IT support, and information security and IT policy, as well as research computing for the university. Virginia has over 35 years of IT experience, ranging from IT consulting in various capacities to 30 years of managing IT at the University of Virginia, both at the central and school levels. She is an active participant in national IT organizations like the Common Solutions Group and Research University CI Group, as well as the Internet 2 organization. She holds a degree with concentration in accounting from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and a Master of Science degree in Management Information Systems from the University of Virginia's McIntire School of Commerce, where she also served as an adjunct professor teaching classes at the graduate level. So with that, Virginia, thank you for being here, and you have the stage.
Great. Thanks, Carson. Thanks very much for having me here today. I'm going to just tell a story of my journey in IT over the last 35 plus years in a male-dominated profession, both as a woman and later when I came out as a gay woman. I'll talk through my experiences and then summarize a few lessons learned, and I'm happy to spend time on any questions that you may have. I started working in IT at UVA in 1986, and prior to that, I had been a tax accountant with Arthur Andersen in DC. So my background is in accounting. I had a really bad experience with technology in college. I hated my computer science class that I took at UNC. In 1983, we were using IBM punch cards in order to make a menu that it would allow you to print a page. And I just didn't see the relevance of it or how it helped anyone. And so I dropped the class. But when I got into work as an accountant, I saw firsthand how IT could help people doing financial work, because we were at that point adding stuff up with adding machines with a little white tape and putting it on, putting all of our accounts on ledger paper, handwritten in pencil. And we would add up the columns with the adding machine and put the white tape on there so we could show how we got the totals. And it just took forever to do that kind of stuff. And when I saw the first spreadsheet, when I saw Lotus 1, 2, 3, I was like, whoa, this is like a total game changer for accounting. So when I came to UVA, I saw how IT could help, and I saw how users struggled with the new technology. New PCs were really new. They were these, big machines with disk drives, no hard disks, floppy disks only. They weren't connected to a network. I mean, it's just really a brand new thing for people. So when I came to work for UVA, I was put in charge of maintaining and enhancing our homegrown budget system, and also did some break fix PC work and help people with their applications like Lotus 123 and WordStar, which was our word processing application. And, in that role, I just learned on the job. I just did what interested me. Nobody else really had the expertise, and I learned it on the job. And I feel like I was helpful. I didn't see any issues at that point with being a woman in this role. I was just somebody who was trying to help, and was valued for that. I left UVA in 1988 when my husband, at the time, graduated from law school. We moved to Minneapolis, and I started working for Anderson Consulting, which is now Accenture, and also did some independent consulting for a large bank there over about 5 years. And there I learned how to code properly, not just on the fly like I did with the budget system at UVA. I moved up pretty quickly because they needed somebody with the skills that I had. There was a job market for IT people. I helped a large bank with their online voice response system, and I worked for a woman manager there. And again, through all these roles, I felt like I was helpful, and I didn't see any issues with being a woman in the role. I was just there to help, and people recognized that. After Minneapolis, I came back to Charlottesville and got my master's at McIntyre. And I've stayed in touch with a lot of the faculty that I met there over the years. After that, I went to go work for the hospital here at UVA in medical center computing, and I worked on a process improvement team. I worked with my boss was a woman who was an ex-nurse, really well connected at the hospital. But I saw a huge difference in the hospital culture. It was very male dominated, not just in IT, but just in general. And male doctors had the power, and there were male top executives. It didn't really impact me because my boss sort of, knew how to deal in that environment, and so sort of ran interference. So I just kept my head down and let my boss deal with the men in the leadership roles. So that really wasn't a problem there in terms of being a woman. Didn't feel like it was all that different, but I did notice that it was a different culture. So I moved to the academic division to work for our first female CIO in 1995. And she promoted me really quickly, probably too quickly. I became the chief operating officer of ITC within about a year. And I had very little experience with management, much less an organization that was that complex. I was kind of thrown into the deep end, but managed to swim and got help from mentors and colleagues to get through it. In 1997, a couple of years into that, in my personal life, I came out as gay, got divorced, became a single parent with 2 young children. So that was happening sort of out of my work environment. And at work, I was told by my boss, the CIO, I had to be very quiet about being gay because she had heard our rector of the Board of Visitors say he wanted to clear out this nest of queers at UVA. So she said, just kind of like, keep your head down, don't, be careful. And I knew that at McIntyre, where I had these relationships with faculty there, it was very much an old boys club there. So I didn't want to openly talk about being gay because I felt like if I came out to them, they wouldn't allow me to teach there. And I really wanted to do that. So it's sort of a don't ask, don't tell policy there. And I was able to teach, but I never mentioned it to them, and not until like probably 5 years ago. So it was the first time, after coming out, that I saw a possibility of discrimination against me unrelated to my work performance. So that was really eye-opening. So eventually I left ITC and I ended up at Darden School of Business here, managing a student information system software team. And I was basically a software vendor. We sold our product to half of the top 20 business schools in the nation. And I developed a business plan to spin out that business. That was during the .com period. And lots of new technology companies were starting up. And so I wanted to spin it out as a startup company. and sort of get out from under the university administration. Still be part of Darden, but the Darden board agreed to start with a software rewrite, which we were getting ready to do. But at the time, right after we had that meeting, the board member, who was super supportive in the meeting, pressured us to use his company to rewrite the software. So under those circumstances, I felt it was really unethical that he had done that, and I quit. Darden has an environment that's very corporate and a very powerful board with many type A, males with big egos. I mean, there was a CEO of Pepsi, the CEO of many other large corporations there. So it was a very different environment. And there again, I tried to stay, sort of under the radar, but it became difficult with what I was doing, and my boss was not sort of able to stand up to the powerful board there. So I left. And after that, the next 12 years or so, I was back in sort of central administration at UVA. I worked under the UVA CFO. She took me in and as her chief of staff, and then it promoted me into managing enterprise applications. So the HR, finance, and student systems. And then I moved under the CIO, who's very supportive. And that was just these have been, they were really good years. The CIO put me in charge of almost all of the IT operations. Very soon after that, about 95% of ITS, what's now ITS, reported to me at the time. And then the CIO left in 2013. And he encouraged me to take the job. And it was funny because I thought, well, I can't do that job, but he knew I was doing almost all of it already. So I was interim for about 6 months, and then I was eventually put into the permanent role in early 2014 as CIO at UVA. It was a difficult time. It was interesting. They hired a male vice president for IT who was a PhD. And that's one thing to mention, that there is discrimination that I've seen. It's gotten better over the years. In higher ed, there's discrimination if you don't have a PhD. Sometimes that's limiting for you. I think that's less so, Moles, if you can, prove that you can actually do the job. You don't necessarily have to have the PhD, but still at that time, I think they wanted a vice president that had a PhD. And they knew they had me, and I don't have a PhD. And so they did this sort of dual thing where they hired a VP for IT and then made me the CIO. And it was just a difficult time because it wasn't clear who did what. The VP for IT wasn't super collaborative, and it was just difficult. He ended up leaving a little over a year ago, and so that's sort of the end of that chapter. So as CIO, from 2014 through the end of December this past year, I led that organization through significant operational change, refreshes of new technologies. We defended against a major cyber attack from China in 2015. We supported UVA through COVID, put 4,200 classes online within 10 days. And I networked with other CIOs in higher ed nationally. And interestingly, in higher ed, I think the percentage is higher. It's probably about 20% women in CIO roles. But across other industries, it's probably, I go to Gartner conferences and stuff, and it's probably 10% women nationally across industries. So definitely still women are in the minority. And, I was in thinking through getting ready for this meeting, I actually watched the last panel that you guys listened to, and it resonated with me, something, Robin Bryan, I see you're here today, Robin, that you said that, I probably have done things to fit in that I wasn't even aware of, like wearing pants versus skirts. Always wore pants. Never really thought about why, but I just, never wore skirts or dresses. And I think that was to fit into the male world that we're in. Overall, though, I would say, just given the kinds of things that I've done and who I've worked for and all that kind of stuff, I've seen a few instances of discrimination as a woman, and heard of many others in schools across UVA. But generally, I found that if I could be helpful, then it was sort of overlooked that I was a woman, or gay for that matter. So that's sort of been my experience. Wrapping up here, I think some important points and lessons learned. I think things are getting better regarding women and gay people, although there's more work to do. I think that it's most important to be helpful and to be known for adding value to your organization versus, how you show up, or, what gender you are, what race you are, what sexual orientation you are, what degrees you have. And I think it's important to identify mentors, either formal or informal, and learn from them. So, I mentioned the nurse that I worked for in the hospital. She helped me navigate this hospital environment that I had never, navigated before. And she showed me how to work successfully in a male-dominated organization. Leonard Sandridge, who was here for a long time, and many UVA people know who that is. He was an institution here. I watched him build consensus and build trust. And it was amazing watching people walking out of a meeting with him. They didn't get what they wanted, but they felt good about it. And so just watching him operate was amazing. Yoxan Reynolds, she was the CFO that I went to work for after I worked at Darden. She pushed really hard to get the best work from you, and she supported people who wanted to work hard and learn. So connecting yourself with people like that is super important. I think, I mentioned this before, staying under the radar when it makes sense. Don't sort of get in the fray of politics. You can just quietly do good work. You'll be recognized for it. Network with others that have a different perspective and can teach you. So, I had lunches regularly with people like from the engineering school, faculty from the engineering school, and became, or with the provost's office or other administrative units, and just became friends with them over the years. And they offered a different perspective and, a different lens into the university that was helpful for me. Working on your professional development is really important. I've done that through McIntyre by staying in touch with my faculty there. I did a leadership program at Bryn Mawr for women leaders in higher ed, which was really good. Just on the job training, asking questions all the time. Nobody knows everything about technology, right? You might know your one little slice, but asking questions about all the other things. And people love to share, and so you can learn a lot on the job. I guess somebody, I think, Shannon, you mentioned this. You don't have to, so first of all, don't be afraid to step up to the next level. You may be thrown into the deep end, but you can usually swim. And you don't have to check off every box when you're applying for a job. This is something that women do a lot of times, is they think if there are 12 things on this list of things for a job and they've done 11, but not 12, they won't apply, and I've seen male colleagues, check off maybe 2 and they apply. So take a chance, again, it's up, as Shannon said, it's up to the people picking the person, not up to you to decide whether you're qualified or not. Another lesson is to move around an organization or to different institutions to get different experiences and perspectives. And so Shannon talked about that. I've definitely done that. And leave the job if the environment doesn't work for you. That's really important. Don't sit in a job that you're not happy in or that you don't think you can grow in. So there are other places that will appreciate you if you're not being appreciated in your current job. So those are my lessons learned over 35 years, and I hope that's helpful to some of you. Happy to answer questions too.
Thank you so much, Virginia. I'm not sure if you saw it in the chat, but there's a comment by Brandy clearly expressing gratitude and complimenting on you, mastering the challenges at UVA. There are a couple questions in not in the chat, but in the Google Doc. So I'm just going to read them out, and maybe both Shannon and Virginia, you can maybe take turns kind of trying to answer them. Question number 1 is, what skills do you recommend for individuals who want to advance in a technical field?
Well, I think it depends on what technical field you're in. You know, it's good to be and there are lots of resources, you know, depending on what technology you're talking about. I'd say, you know, there's both formal and informal learning, and I advocate for both. The formal stuff, you know, you can do some, you know, read, you know, back in the day we read manuals and stuff. You know, you can take classes, you can get certifications, but there's nothing that can replace on-the-job training. So if you can volunteer to do something new that you haven't done before, and you actually learn it by doing it, that's super helpful, I think. And lean on your colleagues to help you. I definitely did that over the years.
Shannon, do you have any?
Yeah, actually, my answer might seem a bit odd, but I'd say people skills. When I see a project fail, it's not because we don't have folks in the room who can figure it out. And yes, you can do formal certifications, you can do informal. There's nothing like just getting to ride along or do the testing phase, even if you're not comfortable or you're not part of the official team. Like, you're going to put it into test before you move it to can I ride along? Can I see this? And you can. So I would definitely echo the on the job. There's nothing like getting in and seeing what really goes into getting it done the first time. But I would really stress people skills. I see very few things that can happen now without a strong interpersonal relationship or a professional relationship, you know, between the people that need to get it done. The ability to bounce ideas, the navigation of conflict is a good thing instead of an adversarial king of the mountain moment, you know. So pulling together and making something better because we've all had a moment to prod against the current solution and figure out the best way to try and move forward, and then testing together and learning together. So yeah, I'd say people skills.
Great, thank you. And I just want to mention, I cannot see everyone in my Hollywood square on the screen here. So if someone is raising their hand, I may not see it. So please just, you know, feel free to post your question in the chat and I'll be happy to call you up. Another question that was is in the Google Doc right now is, and I think you both stressed the importance of building the mentorship relationship, you know, being the mentee, being a mentor. So question for both, how do you make the most of mentorship relationships? So maybe we start with Shannon, if you don't mind.
You know, I heard actually so much of how I've sought out people in Virginia's answer. I will come across someone who is, you know, sometimes they're a peer. I've met people through the course of putting together training exercises from HR who have turned out to be mentors for me and helping me, and in turn I have helped them with something else. I've met people who, you know, are faculty in a department who have been excellent at this, a dean of a college, you know, an AV designer, of folks who were further along in their career that did things that maybe I wasn't going to do this, but their input and their guidance has been instrumental in being able to move into that next position. I wasn't sure if I could get through diving in the deep end or something of that nature. So I'd say, you know, go about your day doing good things for as many people as you can help. And when you see that kindred spirit, that person who's doing that wherever they are, that's a good person to know. That's a good person to keep in touch with.
Great, thank you. Virginia, anything you'd like to add?
I agree with Shannon in it. And it's, you know, and I like the way she said, just it's a good person to keep in touch with, right? You want to have lunches with them, maybe have coffee with them every now and then, just keep that connection going. And it doesn't have to be saying, will you be my mentor? You know, it's really just keeping that personal connection and, you know, having a dialogue with a person.
Great. Maybe a related question comes out of this. with COVID and a lot of us working remotely, any recommendations for options for building relationships and expanding networks in this kind of remote environment?
Well, I mean, that's a big question. Everybody's trying to figure that out. But I feel like since we've been sort of emerging from the pandemic, you know, while people are still working remotely, they get together socially. And if you are in the same location as some of your colleagues, get together with them for coffee or something, or, you know, and there's nothing like the personal connection in person. If you're not in the same area, you could maybe have coffee virtually or something. But there's something about the informal social atmosphere that you get more out of in, you know, sort of in a collegial way, as opposed to just not necessarily just working on a project with somebody.
Great, thank you.
I'd agree. This has been a huge challenge. And I'd say even just in hybrid has been even more challenging than, you know, I have a team that's almost all telework and I have a team that's almost all in person. And then I have folks who are hybrid and, you know, they'll be on campus 2 days and off 3 days. So it's become a huge challenge. So we do have some folks travel in like maybe once a quarter or something of that nature. So I'm considering maybe doing a quarterly something where we can all be in the same space for a little while. And we're looking into social events with the folks who are telework, who are very far from us. Some of that depends on, you know, if I'm going to bring them in for a day or two, I need to secure the travel funds and that sort of thing. So it's difficult. We used to have one meeting once a week, and it was kind of an open support call for anyone unless nobody showed up, and then the staff would all join the call and we would just catch up with each other. Which I found people really liked to just so I've gone to this very quick like pickup meeting where we all just come together and we go around and we say, does anybody need anything this week? Is there anything going on? Is there anything you need us to know? And from there, I'm finding that people are branching off into conversations on their own, and they're just opening up those lines of communication between folks who are primarily on site and those who are working completely through these collaborative tools. So I try to get us all like 30 minutes, let's just say hello. And that's opened up some lines of communication between folks who work in very different modes.
Great.
I think too, if you can get people together for something, you don't want to, you know, you don't want to just do it to do it, right? You want to have a purpose. So if you can get people together, you know, for a planning meeting or something like that, and then, you know, you're focused on that business, and then have an after meeting that it's not really a meeting, but maybe as a happy hour or something like that, where people can actually connect with each other, I've found that's really been effective for some of the groups that I work with.
Okay, great. This is a follow-up question specifically for you, Virginia, as you mentioned, Women's Leadership Professional Development Program that you participated in. Maybe Shannon has a similar one. I thought maybe in the interest to share that information, maybe we could follow up in an email if you can share any specific programs, you know, both of you, Shannon and Virginia, and that we could share with the community through our subscription list. I mean, does that sound good?
Yeah, I mean, I would highly recommend the one that I did. It was like it was a 6-week program at the time. I don't think and it was on site. I went to Bryn Mawr and lived there for 6 weeks. But they've changed that program a little bit, but it's at its core, it's still good. It's higher ed women, and not just IT. It's all aspects of higher ed. There were faculty there. There were somebody and people from the registrar's office and so on. But that is called HERS, H-E-R-S. It's an acronym, and I can't remember what it stands for. And then there's also, at the time that I did that, there was also one at Harvard. So but I'm not as familiar with that. I heard it was really, really good, and it's a women focused higher ed leadership program.
I think we have maybe time for one last question. Is there any other question in the audience that anyone would like to ask before we wrap it up? Okay, I just have maybe one question I would like to put out there for you, Virginia, as well as you, Shannon, but also the whole community. what is maybe one of the or some actual steps that we as a as a community working in computing can take individually to contribute to diversity and equity, right? So as we kind of working from the inside, how do we make our environments better?
I think it's important. So you asked about individually. So as a manager, if you're a manager individually, you have a lot of influence, and you can, within your group or your sphere of influence, you can put some practices in place, just some things that seem small, but they can help through the hiring process. I talked about women who don't like checklists. You don't want to put out a checklist because that might discourage some women from applying. That's a that is a known fact. Think about hiring committees and making sure that your folks have diverse hiring committees to hire people. The job descriptions can be written in a way, and there are actual AI programs that would go through your job description and make recommendations for how to make it more diversity friendly. Lots of implicit bias gets written into job descriptions. It just does not need to be there, and there are tools to help with that. So, and I think it's also, as a manager, it's thinking about recruiting is important, but thinking about retaining is also as important. And making sure that people value differences. Some of that you have to model. Some of it you can train people, but some of it is learned by watching. And so recruiting and retaining is important, and also thinking about hiring people with non-traditional backgrounds and diversity there. I mean, Shannon and I both told you we didn't start out in IT. So if you go looking for IT people in IT, okay, that's one pool, but you might want to look at music majors, or you might want to look at other folks.
Great.
Those are things that I would do as a manager individually, if you are a manager.
Shannon, you have a couple of sentences. We want to wrap it up, but I want to give you a chance to.
Sure. And so most of what I would say would be the same. Actually, everything would be the same. I would just say, like, one step further with your hiring committees. Have a conversation. I know built into our training is a moment where you have to talk about inclusivity and bias that you may have. When I ask myself some difficult questions, I've been in the field a long time, and I learned to survive and thrive in a certain type of environment that I really don't think everyone should have to be exposed to, but I'd gotten used to it. I have a bias. So, talk to your search committees, volunteer as that diversity representative that has to do the statistics and work on the pools or whatever that folks don't want to do, but do that and then help people find meaning in that, and talk to them and prepare them to ask questions that are technical, questions that have a certain range of answers, and then avoid the flashy technical answer that's not the answer, that's not even answering the question. Because we'll see women come in and they'll answer the question and then they'll stop. And sometimes you'll see men come in and answer a different question that's a more technical answer and then keep going. And people are still more comfortable sometimes with that super technical answer, even if that's not what you asked. So just have that conversation with your committee as you get started.
Great, thank you. There's one related question. I don't think we have time to fully address it, but it's related to this. What you can do in the hiring process, advertising, interviewing, to remove, reduce implicit bias and encourage women to apply. So we don't have the time to discuss it today, but I think it is a very important piece that just relates to exactly what you, Shannon, and Virginia said. So with that, I just like to thank both of you, Shannon and Virginia, I think on behalf of everyone here in the audience, for a very illuminating discussion, for sharing your perspective. And thanks so much. And I'll hand it back to Gladys.
Thank you, Karsten. I'm just going to share the slides because we have.
All right, there we go. Hi, everyone. My name is Talitha McGinnis, and I am with Internet 2. Gladys very kindly invited me to come and just share with you real quick. It aligns with all the discussion that's been happening we have created, well, I should say the community has created what is called the Internet 2 Inclusivity Initiative. And it helps to focus on resources, attention, and provide scholarships to improve diversity and inclusion within the community of networking and technical professionals. And so part of it is we offer scholarships to help women in particular to be able to attend our 2 annual conferences that we have each year. One being called the Global Summit, but now this year it's being called the Community Exchange. And the other one is called the Technology Exchange. And the scholarship helps provide funding, sponsorship, to allow women to be able to attend. It pays for their flight, their registration, and their lodging. We also provide a recognition dinner one of the nights, and we invite a couple people from within the community. For instance, our CEO at Internet 2, he comes to the dinner. So it provides an opportunity to help you network and meet individuals within the community and provide mentorship opportunities. So going along with the conversation. To date, we've been able to offer 45 scholarships since the inception, which was 2014. We've actually had 3 women apply from Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University, and all 3 of them have been selected and have attended a global summit. So the requirements for to be able to apply, you have to be a woman, including graduate students working, studying at an Internet 2 member organization. So it can be higher education, research and education networks, affiliate, and industry organizations. And you have to be attending your first Internet 2 event. And award monies will be applied, like I said, to the registration and lodging and flight. We will pair, part of it, what we do is we pair mentors from within the community to have a meal, either breakfast or lunch, with the awardees. So you can ask questions and they can provide some suggestions as to sessions you might want to attend. So in our events, they help you with, so the Community Exchange, formerly Global Summit, is more geared towards leadership and career development and growth. And the Technology Exchange is more technical side of it. So, but both events provide great opportunity to grow your network and learn about Internet 2 itself, along with the community and what's going on, and help you make those connections and mentors. So, and I was going to put in the chat for you, that is the link to learn more about the scholarship and to be able to apply. And a person can either self-apply or they can be nominated by a leader.
Thank you, Talitia. And we will share this information when we do our follow-up email. So one last thing that we want to share before we have to dismiss everyone is, this is special for the students. This is basically like what are the steps that are next for us. But one thing is, right now, we have a logo competition going on. This is specifically for the students. So we want to promote your creativity. The deadline for this is February 17, and we have, if you are the winner, we select your logo. We have $500 that has been already sponsored by Cambridge Computing. So if you want to have $500, just try to think about a logo that can be, it's going to be basically our brand as we go forward with the program. Also, we want to be able to have our logo set up before we send our application to become a chapter of the Women in HPC organization. And lastly, our next event is going to be April 4th. And what we're hoping to do here this time is we want to be able to give the students, either whether you are undergrad or you're a grad student or you are just a recent graduate, give you the opportunity to present and highlight your research, whatever you are doing in computing or in IT that you have incorporated in your research or the studies that you are doing. We invite you to participate. So feel free to send me an email if you want to be considered for the lightning talks. Either way, we're going to send an announcement to everyone trying to recruit some of the students, and we invite all our sister institutions to participate. And once again, we're still looking for institutions that want to become part of the program, part of the committee members. And so we're still looking for someone from ODU and also from James Madison University to participate. And that's all that I have, Karsten.
Great, thank you, Gladys. I don't have anything else. So I think, again, thank you, Virginia and Shannon for joining us. Thank you everyone for joining. Also, Gladys, thank you for getting this program off the ground, and everyone else in the committee for helping out to move it forward.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. See you next meeting. Bye-bye. Thank you.